So after more than a month of using it, and after going through the first major updates that the S20 Ultra has gotten, this is my full review for this great beast of a phone. And after taking a small hiatus away from Android, when Samsung announced the S20 Ultra back in February, I was excited. I mean, it had everything that you could possibly dream of on a phone. I mean, if a couple of years ago you have told me that a phone with these specs would be coming out in 2020, I would probably think you were being overly optimistic. And after all this time of using the phone, I'm here to answer one and only question. Is this phone the right purchase for you? Now, the two main things that set this phone apart from everything else are the camera and the screen. Simply put, the screen is the best. Well, slightly apart from the OnePlus 8 Pro that has a marginally better screen than this S20 Ultra, but those are small details, I guarantee you. This is the best screen you've probably have seen on a mobile phone, and if you're like me and like to watch shows and movies on your phone, and you can watch some HDR stuff on the phone, it's pristine imaging. It's just incredible. And the speakers are pretty good too. The entire phone just tends to vibrate with the sound that creates like a sort of tingly feeling in the fingers. It's a weird thing. Of course, this would not be a Galaxy S20 Ultra review without mentioning the entire 120 Hz and 1080p thing. I mean, yes, 1440p is sharper, and yes, there is a difference, but the fact that you cannot use 1440p and 120 Hz at the same time, it's a small thing in like the grand scheme of things. I mean, Samsung could probably enable it via an update, but I don't really think that would be a wise move, particularly for those of us that have the Exynos 990 version. I mean, more on that a little later. But even if they enabled it, most people will be hard pressed to notice a difference in, I don't know, just normal viewing angles. Probably the biggest difference that you will feel is the fact that apps like YouTube will not offer you a 1440p option if you have 1080p 120 Hz enabled. In those apps you can notice a difference, but it's not really related to the pixel density. It's much more to do with the higher bitrate that you get with the higher resolutions. Under this beautiful screen you get one of the pieces of tech that I thought will be the greatest until I've used it daily, and I don't feel so good about it anymore. To be honest, I would prefer a side fingerprint sensor instead of having it on the screen and it being this inconsistent for me. It's okay, I guess, but it's not as fast as the optical fingerprint sensor on the OnePlus 8 Pro, and it's not as convenient as Face ID in general. I think most people will be fine with it, but it's definitely not a feature that has seen any major improvements over the past 2 years. Another area that Samsung hasn't really changed too much this year was the design. I mean, it's very similar to last year, apart from the slightly less curved front screen, which is a major plus in my books. I mean, curved screens look great in pictures, but in real day-to-day usage, they're not that good to use, to be honest. Samsung this year has pretty much figured out a way to please everyone with it being slightly curved, but not flat. Even if I would probably still prefer a flat screen, I think this is as close as we're gonna get with Samsung, and I'm pretty okay with that. Just change the back glass for something matte. Anything matte. I don't think a phone of this price should feel this grimy and slimy just by using it without a case, but I don't know, that's just me. On a typical day using this phone, it is blazing fast and it is an absolute joy to use. It is really hard to look back at any screen that isn't 120 Hz. I mean, I've had that issue when I upgraded this screen that's back here to 144 Hz a couple of years ago, and that completely ruined games at 60 Hz for me on the PC. But on a phone, just normal Reddit browsing and YouTube watching and all those things just flow so seamlessly, and the gesture navigation is pretty good as well, so you just feel fast and quick and nimble doing all those things, and it definitely is an improvement. I mean, you're still doing things at about the same speed, you're not doing anything faster, you're not gaining anything with it, but it's just that feel that you get when a phone is just buttery smooth. If you're looking into the gaming aspect of this phone, I'm not really that big of a gamer on my phone, but I've tried some stuff. Fortnite runs at a locked 30 frames per second, so the 120 Hz, I mean, it's not going to do much for you there. Real Racing 3, Asphalt 9, I mean, those games run at a locked 60 frames per second, and as much as I've tried to find, I couldn't really find a game that ran natively at 120 FPS to just enjoy the screen as much as I could. So that's pretty much the experience most people are gonna get. It's 120 Hz, it's really smooth, but it's not 120 Hz smooth when you're playing games. You need to match the hertz with the frames per second in the game, and the truth is most games don't really do that, particularly with the Exynos 990 version. I don't think that will have enough performance to power 120 FPS in most games. Battery life is 5,000 milliamp hours, and that thing just sounds absolutely massive. I was beyond excited when I saw it, but truth be told, if you run your phone at 120 Hz, 1080p, and if you tend to play games on your phone, your battery will die fast. And if you tend to do lighter weight tasks, you probably are still going to be able to kill your phone quite easily in 24 hours. I mean, it's not bad battery life. I'll probably give it, I don't know, like a 7 out of 10, particularly with my version of the phone, with the Exynos 990. The battery, it just feels like it could have been improved by a lot. I mean, I'm gonna link in the description to an AnandTech article that goes very in-depth into the Snapdragon 865 and the Exynos 990 version, completely comparing both of them. But the gist of it is, the Exynos 990 did very small performance improvements compared to last year and no power efficiency improvements. And the 865 improved both power and performance. And how that translates to day-to-day usage is, if you have the Exynos 990 version, your phone has to work extra hard to keep the same level of performance. And if you do sustained load things, it will not be able to keep up with the Snapdragon 865. But the key word really is sustained load. If you're just doing lightweight tasks, the phones will feel very similar. The only difference you will see is the Exynos 990 version will have slightly worse battery life. I mean, that can range from as best as 5 to 15%, but in certain situations where performance really differs from the Snapdragon to the Exynos, you could probably see somewhere around 25% worse. And that can easily translate to 1 to 2 hours of screen on time less in like a 5-hour screen on time day. But the problem with this is that you cannot buy the Snapdragon version of this phone outside of the US and Asia, and in other regions you're stuck with the Exynos version of the phone and you're paying the same price for something that is effectively 15 to 25% worse performing. Rolling back to this, that got a slightly bit too negative. Let's go back to good things. The camera. I mean, at launch, reviewers focused way too much on the entire autofocus issues. I mean, I thought it was not going to be fixed, but after a couple of firmware updates, it's definitely in a good place. It's not as fast as some other phones, but after the update is very minor. What's not super minor is how hard it is to keep things in focus. I mean, maybe next year Samsung will bring back the adjustable aperture that they had a couple of years ago. That could be very useful with this big of a sensor. But other than that, 108 megapixel photos are crispy, 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 crispy. If you give the sensor enough light, I mean, those are probably the most detailed shots you've ever seen come out of a phone. It's still a phone camera, don't get overly excited, but if you give it enough light, you only compromise slightly dynamic range-wise when compared to the 12 megapixel binned shots, and the detail payoff is really remarkable. In auto mode, the phone just combines 9 pixels into one to make the 108 megapixel shot go to 12 megapixels with super sampling of all that information, and the pictures come out pretty good. I'm still not the biggest fan of how Samsung tends to process pictures, but other than that, it's really good shots. And I know a lot of people that really prefer the way that Samsung does pictures. Slightly brighter, slightly contrastier, slightly more saturated colors, but keyword is slightly. In the past they were quite aggressive, but these days the camera is really good. The difference between what I would consider is the best main camera pictures right now, like the Pixel 4 or the iPhone 11 Pro, the difference to this phone, I mean, maybe 5%, but at that point, what are we comparing? I mean, you can easily tweak this picture to look more like the iPhone picture if you want, and if you apply any sort of tweaking, everything will look pretty much the same. And with this phone, you get a shallower depth of field, and that is very hard to mimic with software. If you're talking just straight up versatility, I think this is the most versatile picture-taking phone you can get. Notice I said pictures. That's just because it cannot do 4K 60 in video in all the lenses, and it has a much larger crop in when compared to the iPhone 11 in every single one of the lenses to record in 4K. But in pictures, it is the most versatile you're gonna get. But if you're looking just into video, the iPhone 11 Pro is still the king with less crop in, better autofocus, 4K 60 in every single one of the lenses, and better dynamic range. Notice that all this talk, I just said 4K. Listen, I know Samsung put 8K recording very apparent in the box, and I'm all up for new tech, but the truth is, recording in 8K is rough. It's really intensive. I mean, we're talking about taking 24, 33 megapixel pictures every second and saving that to memory. You're bound to bump your head into some compromises, and there are some compromises. Obviously, you have file size. I mean, 8K video is very large, but it's still on the phone, so they compress it a lot. And to be honest, the main reasons you would go for 8K these days is you're probably looking into just cropping into your video, but with all the compression, it doesn't look too great. And 8K is also good to record small, fine detail. And if you want to record like a time lapse, it's pretty good at that. But if you want to just default to 8K recording, it's not great. The compression artifacting is strong. The rolling shutter is probably one of the biggest I've ever seen in any camera. The autofocus is slower than in 4K. The dynamic range is worse than in 4K. The amount of noise you have is worse than in 4K. And in the end, very few things are better than in 4K. And you also get a large crop in the main camera, and you can only use the main camera. And in the end, what do you actually get? You get the best time-lapse phone you can get, and that's pretty much it. One honorable mention goes to the super steady mode. I mean, if you've ever given your phone for someone to record for you and they are one of those people that tend to do a lot of these shakes, or one of those people that just forget they're recording and they just wave their hands way too much. I mean, this mode is clutch. It's only 1080p, but it's the best stabilization I think I've ever seen on a phone, even if you have to deal with a slight crop in and only 1080p. With all this being said, the big question definitely is, who is this phone really for? Number one, this phone is for all those people that just love Samsung phones. I mean, this is the best phone Samsung has ever made. autofocus is not an issue, and the performance, you probably are going to be very happy with it, even if it's not top of the line as much as the price suggests. So I'd say this is the phone for you if you are comfortable with the price. If not, look into the S20 Plus or the S20, slightly cheaper, but still very good cameras, even if you don't have the 108 megapixel. Second, you have those people that don't really enjoy Samsung software that much, but loved everything else that I've talked about. This is probably for you, if you can accept the price tag. The only issue with the software in my eyes is the sometimes too cartoony, too colorful look, and the double apps pre-installed, and some apps that you can only disable and not remove. And third, if you're looking into the best zoom lens on any phone right now, this is also it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. This is probably the best phone that most people should avoid. I'm grateful that it exists. I really enjoyed using it daily, and it really shows that Samsung can put out just big hardware. But as I'm finishing this review, maybe I'm craving something bluer. I don't know. We'll see how that review goes. If you're still watching, maybe I deserved that little thumbs up thingy, and maybe subscribe if you want to watch more of my face and technology, and my cat always at the end. Yeah, bye.